So that's about as much as I can tell you, except I think it's a young man who's shipwrecked, and he is then in much the position of the hero in Shogun, having to learn a very stratified, foreign culture from the ground up. And then the question of the role of the creator, by which you mean God, not the writer.
Yes.
Because, as you know, he said, he didn't believe writers. He said, I work to a certain point and then the characters take it over. He said, I don't believe that for a minute. But actually what he said was, I am an Old Testament God. And my fist is in the middle of my character's eyes. But the way he envisions the light in these books is that they have a very immediate sense of the creator, which is they don't need churches because he's right there for them. Not that they don't believe, they believe so deeply that they live their lives in a sense of God and the creator.
And I guess the question is more so, has the creator been intimately connected to Rand's journey? Like, did the creator purposely set Rand up to be the Dragons of War? Or more so just the pattern of doing his own thing?
I think only in the sense that the creator is perceived by the characters as being pretty intimately involved in all their lives.
Thank you.
Taishar.
The Nephrim, and Taishar was a grow. Go Vikings. The one question I have is, this wouldn't be a panel without asking, who killed Asmodeus?
It's in the glossary of Towers of Midnight. It's actually mentioned in there who killed Asmodeus. Towers of Midnight, last book. It came out last year, 2 years ago. You got your answer, you just have to go find it in there. Let me give a little explanation on that, so you guys who haven't heard the story. I know many of you have. When I first went to Charleston, this was 2007 in December. I had signed the contracts not knowing how much was written of the book or what was even available, because it's how I had to go. I had to sign all the NDAs and things before I could see. So I flew out there and picked up the material, so to speak, material we call the notes and everything. I got in very late because it's flying to Charleston from Salt Lake is you have connected Atlanta and things. No, I get in late and. We walk in, Harry picks me up from the airport, brings me in, and it was a bean soup you had made or something like it. You're like, would you like some food? I know you've been flying a long time. And I said, no, I'd like the ending, please. Thank you. and so she laughed and got me the materials and handed them to me in a stack, and I went in to the room, the sitting room, and I sat down to read them, and on the very top was a Post-it note. On top of a page of fan information, like it printed off from the internet, a fan theory, and all it said is, "This is right." And the fan theory was about who killed Asmodeus. And that's all we had was a "this is correct." Maybe they have more, maybe Maria has more, but all I knew was this is correct. I didn't know the how, the why, or anything. This person, why they did this, and so when it came time to put it in the books. I kind of almost jokingly said we should put it in the glossary because we don't know, so we'll just put it in for fans in the same way we got it, which is just a Post-it note. We'll stick it in and look like a Post-it note in the glossary, and that's because we don't have the full story. And so we went ahead and did that, and then when I was writing the book, I actually worked it into the text, and Harry wrote back and said, no, I like this glossary thing, it's going in the glossary. I cut it out of the text and left it in the glossary, and the idea is you get to feel like we felt because I didn't know anything more than this is it. So I gave it to you as transparently as possible so you can have the same feeling of confusion that I had.
Bulgarian from my basic character.
It sounds like it's nice to be short. We're about the microphone. I'm Ben Leverage. I'm from here, Ormond, Provo. And my question is probably mostly for Maria. It is, so we have seen several examples in the books recently about things being healed that we didn't think could be healed. Severing, madness. We've also seen in the past that there are links that a person can have physically to the Dark One. Asmodean had a link to the Dark One, which allowed him to funnel off some of the madness, and Rand severed that. So my question is along those lines, can a similar kind of thing happen to one who has been forcibly turned to the shadow with a circle of murder-all and channelers? Can that be severed or healed, turning them back to the light? Or to their, whatever their normal state of mind would be?
We didn't find out. Took us long enough.
My name is Chris Gable from Los Angeles. My name is Chris Gable from Los Angeles. I have a question for Harriet. It's from me and from my really good friend Andrew, who is without a doubt the biggest Wheel of Time fan in this room.
You guys didn't camp out.
But the question is, if money wasn't an issue and you had any budget that you wanted, what, in your opinion, would be the best way to put the Wheel of Time on the screen?
Well, I think that it's so big and so rich that its most wonderful appearance on film would be as a television series.
Please God, not like Secret for Free.
Never let it be made into movies, because that will absolutely ruin it.
The really long movies. Please God, never like Secret for Free.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Wonders from Las Vegas, Nevada. So a while back ago, Wizards of the Coast produced a role-playing game for the Wheel of Time. And while not the best translation of the world, it was a really good effort nonetheless, and it brought the fans together to create a lot of great material. And when that kind of faded off and sputtered into nothingness, some of us have been rapidly waiting for this last book in hopes that it would open another door for another tabletop RPG. Is there anything of that nature in the works?
No. Also, I should say that the film rights to the Wheel of Time are at present being developed at Universal, and not, I'm sorry to say, as a series, but it's another medium, and what que sera, sera, as Doris Day and Alfred Hitchcock told us all those years ago.
Thank you very much. Hey. American Fork, locally. I had a really good question, but I looked it up on the internet before I came, and it was answered both under email. Something else. So we've seen the hierarchies explained in a lot of the different, orders in Randland. Like, the wise ones, it's kind of force of will, right? Like Aes Sedai, kind of defer based on like strength of the tower, that kind of thing. Have we seen that in the Black Tower? And is that what's going on with how the men treat Angel?
The Black Tower is still unformed. They've begun, you've got to remember that you mentioned the Wise Ones, you mentioned the White Tower. These are institutions that have been going for a long, long time, and they've had plenty of time to build their hierarchies organically. The Black Tower has not had that chance yet. And I think that if you were to watch the Black Tower for the next 1,000 years, assuming it survives, assuming it survives even this book, you would see them come up with their own method of stratification. And it might be similar to one of the others, it might be different. And you'll have to just read and figure out on your own what you think would happen. Yes, read and figure out. Because you're trying to compare, in a lot of ways, apples and oranges, because something that's had 1,000 years to grow is going to be, it's going to have some of that rigidity that something brand new doesn't have.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Derek Holland from Provo, Utah. My question is for Harriet. After Jim died, of course, you're going through all of these authors, and there's so many authors in the fantasy and even science fiction genre that could have taken the step. But was there an aha moment, or what was it that made you say to yourself, this guy is the one?
The first thing that led me to Brandon was the very beautiful eulogy he wrote for Robert Jordan on his website. And I don't hang out on the net, because I think I can either do that or have a productive life. A friend who likes to hang out on the net saw the eulogy, printed it out, and said, you need to read this, and I certainly did. And I thought, this is the spirit that I very much want in the writer who will finish the series. At the same time, another writer, a perfectly good writer who has a decent reputation, had his agent call Robert Jordan's agent. Do you see the difference? But then what really, I had not read Brandon, and I called Tom Doherty. I was the original editorial director of Tor, so my relationship with Tom Doherty goes back to when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I asked him for a book, and he said, well, don't take ill interest, that's the first novel, I'll send you Mistborn. And he did, and I read 47 pages of it, and I fell asleep, which is not
burn.
There's something you should know about professional editors, or at least this one. I cannot go to sleep while the story's in trouble. When I have to keep reading until I see that the story is in good hands. So, and I was also exhausted. I woke up, and the story, the planet, the situation, even what they were eating, it was all clear. And I said, yeah, he can do it. And Tom Doherty said, well, what do you read? Don't you think you should read the whole book? It's an important decision. And I said, it would be very important if I were hiring him to write a Brandon Sanderson novel, but I'm hiring him to write Robert Jordan, and he can do it.
Yeah.
My name is Adam Simmons. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I really hope that I'm not misremembering something. I was trying to look it up on my Kindle, and I couldn't find it. So please, God, let me not be wrong. In one of the Forsaken viewpoints in, I think it was Night of Dreams or something, one of the Forsaken was thinking about how had circumstances been different, Demandred could have been named the dragon. And what I'm wondering is the dragon an actual title, or was Mousteren born to be the dragon, or was that a mantle he picked up along the way?
I can say some things on this, but it's going to be more, it may not be the exact answers you want. I can say things that have been said. For instance, you can look at things like Logain and how false dragons were being brought up out of the pattern until Rand. And at that moment, everything collapsed. until, and it was really when Rand channeled for the first time. Am I correct? That everything sort of collapsed. There's some parallels in there.
The battle on foam.
Well, you know, it's when he took California. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's Skyfall. And until Rand took up the mantle. Yeah, that's it. And so it's when Rand, and so you could look at that and make the argument, wait a minute, until that moment, until Rand stepped up and was willing to be the dragon, the pattern was searching for one, and things like that. And you can interpret that a lot of different ways. And you could probably make an argument, Theoryland can make an argument, on both sides on that. If Rand had not stepped up, was that just the end of the world? Would the world have then been doomed if Rand as a baby had been killed? That's something that you can theorize on, and kind of you can look at the clues in the books. And Jim did not leave us an answer, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Michael Chantry from Footokello, Idaho. Thank you for the books. They're amazing. Thank Robert Jordan for the books. I like them so much, I actually made my second child parent. My question is to both Brandon and Harriet. I know you love this new book, Memory of Light, that you've created for us, and out of it, is there anything that what is your favorite part? What did you enjoy most about it? If you could give us a chapter, section, anything. I know. There's a 200-page chapter in this book. I found it very thematically important, and my favorites part is right at the end of that chapter and the beginning of the next chapter. And the next chapter is actually very short. So really it's probably chapter 39, but with the lead-in at the end of chapter 38. There's more than 37 to 38. Okay, 37 to 38. Peter knows these things better than I do.
Well, I love the end of chapter 23, the final sequence. And as you're aware from Brandon's other books, I mean, a lot of the chapters will have a piece here, and then there's a two-line space, and you jump 500 miles away. So the last segment of 23, I think, is just super. But there are an awful lot of things that I do love in this book. The scene I read for you is one of my favorites. There's more of it, but I thought, I'm getting on too long, because we hadn't quite time to know it. I think it's a wonderful book.
The question wasn't directed up here to me, but I think I definitely need to say that, without being cliche, the ending, the epilogue, was far and away everything I could have hoped it was, and it was my favorite part of the book. It was just, I can't wait for all of you to eventually read it and hopefully have the same kind of reaction that I did. It's pretty awesome.
I can talk a little bit more about that, because I told you the Asmodean story, but next under that sheet was this, were the scenes that Robert Jordan had written for the book. And so that included sections from the prologue, which got split into various pieces of the various prologues of the three novels, sections out of the book, and then this ending, the epilogue. And it's one of the most, one of the scenes we were able to preserve, sequences, the most close to the way Robert Jordan left it. Because a lot of scenes he'd leave like a paragraph. And then it's like I have to expand that into, or I have to work a whole thing and then have that paragraph in. There's a famous scene, for instance, with Varin in Gathering Storm, where he left, the kind of what you would imagine as the important parts, but it's only the important parts, and then it doesn't have a lead-in or an exit to the scene. And so, I had to write up and then lead into what he'd written and then lead out of it, and that sort of stuff. And this is actually, we've got complete sequences that he wrote before he passed away. And so when you get to that epilogue, you can know there's some very non-touched by the rest of us stuff that he had in a very good shape to be published before he passed away.
And I should have thought of that, but as he read it in 2007, and so did I, and I had known some bits of it for years before that, but it really is splendid.
Thank you very much.
Lance Hislop from Hawaii, Utah. This is for you, Brandon. In his book, Maphead, your former roommate and Jeopardy champion said that he liked having you as a roommate because you made him look good for the ladies. Would you like to defend yourself?
Referencing Ken, the second most famous roommate that lived together. I would have to say that I didn't take any liberties in my book to take public pot shots at him because I'm more secure. Our other roommate is actually right here filming us.
My name is Kevin Bauer. I'm from Orem, Utah. My question is mostly directed to Harriet, but also anybody else who kind of wants to jump in here. Just one of the things I love about the books is there's so many characters, and there are moments where like each of the characters has their ups and downs, and there's chapters where like, man, Karen is on fire, or Matt is the greatest. But if you could hang out with any character from this universe, even disregarding what you know about Matt's similarities to Robert Jones, but if you could hang out with any character, who would it be? And then also for Harriet and Marita, if you could be any Aja in the White Tower, which would you pick?
Well, Maria and I have different fancies about the male. She fancies some Matt. Big time. I, on the other hand, have always been struck by the numerous ways in which Robert Jones resembles Perrin. Very large, as a former lineman for Clemson University would be. And hairy. And I just want, anyway, I think it would be Perrin. I'm torn between the blue and the brown. I think mostly blue.
Yeah.
And I am so brown.
Actually, on one of these last book tours, Brandon looked at this thing I'm wearing around my neck, because this is a nice, non-losable thing. It's a color. It said, oh, looking at the stripes, orange, my favorite Aja.
And we're going to try and go for another 15 minutes or so, so let's maybe suggest no more people getting in line. We may not even get to the line as it is, so if you're in line, stay there, but otherwise let's cap it here and see where we get for the next 15 minutes.
My question is for Brandon. I've started writing now, and I love to listen to music when I write. I was just curious, what is your ritual for when you write? Do you like music? Do you like complete silence?
I'll repeat the question. It looks like the microphone got turned off. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
He asked what my ritual is for writing, do I listen to music? And I usually have to listen to music. For some reason, I don't like the silence. I like something going. And so I generate Pandora stations based around different moods, and I'll turn them on for different sequences and different scenes. At some points, I will just pick out specific bands that I have music by, and I'll play that depending on what I need to be writing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different things, but it's often just Pandora-ish, sort of backgroundy, generic sort of things. I do like, during my early years writing, I listened to a lot of overclocked remixes. They were free. Video game music were remixed into different orchestrations and stuff. And I was too poor to buy a lot of music, so I went and grabbed those. And so I still have many favorites among those.
Okay, and then just because you two have created something so wonderful that has changed my life, it's my very favorite series, I made something for each of you. These are Amerlin chains. They follow the 7 colors of the Aja in the pattern of the Amerlin stole. I made one of these for Harriet and one for Brandon. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Willoughby, and I'm from here. I actually started going to this high school about the time the books came out. So I think this is probably the coolest event that's ever happened in this entire what's happening tonight. My question is, for Harriet, you said Robert Jordan had an engineering job with the government before he started writing books. How heavily did you try to dissuade him from getting that job? This crazy fantasy stuff. Because I remember what fantasy books were like at the time he started coming out, and I mean, this changed everything. There was nothing at this level, so he was doing something very, very different.
I didn't know him when he quit to start writing. I met him, I guess, a year or possibly 2 after he had stopped, and gave him the second contract he had been offered. The first was a contract given to him by Daw Books, little skinny ones with the yellow spine.
Yeah.
And then the contract came with this nice long letter from Don Walheim, the publisher, and he wrote back he'd been taking a course in business law at the College of Charleston, and said, Louis, I'm so glad to have your offer, but could I have a little more than 5% of the movie rights? Or something like that. And Walheim wrote back a 1-line letter, in view of your contract attitude, I withdraw my offer. But he was an optimist, and in that rather badly, and chose to remember that on his first submission he got an offer, rather than the son of a gun withdrew your offer, and I would therefore be discouraged. So I gave him what was the contract for his first published book, which was a historical novel called The Foul of Blood. And then Doherty wanted somebody to write a Conan novel after Three Fowls, and distribution was drying up on the 3rd book. And I said, well, because of this Walheim rejection, that Jim could write a Conan. And he said, I don't want to do that. And 3 weeks later, I hadn't thought of anybody else. I said, please. And he said, don't wiggle that thing at me, Harriet. So he did, and he liked it so much, he did 7. And so, I mean, it was long after his quitting his job that this began. And I had nothing to do with that. Except that in the middle of all this, it looked as if my imprint, which had published his first thing and all, was going to go belly up. And I was in the yard pulling wild onions, which is what I do in moments of insane stress, because you never get rid of wild onions. It's impossible. And I was out there pulling these things up and saying, I can't go back to New York. I can't get a job. I guess I was 40. Anyway, I'm 40. I'm too old. You can't climb the corporate ladder after that. And he said, Harriet, I can't go back to being an engineer for the Navy now that I've been writing Conan the Barbarian, do you think they'll let me anywhere near their nuclear science? I looked up at him and I laughed and I said, I guess not, Lord Doom.
Thank you very much.
My name's Jeremy Griffin. I'm from Roy, Utah as well. Well, I had the world in 1991, so for a very, very long time. So thank you so much. By the way, great. Alcatraz, fantastic. If you guys haven't read any of them, rarely does a book make me laugh out loud. It's 2,000 pages, I don't care if that's what it is. Could he have done that because of his...
Well, the problem is it wasn't clout. It was pushing up against the laws of physics. There are limits to the size a bound book can be without sort of falling apart the minute you open it. And then you're up against the shelf space in bookstores.
Real quick too, please don't sell the rights to a computer for it, because it's going to be as bad as...
The rights are sold.
Hey, I'm Aaron from West Jordan. I started reading the series in middle school and discovered Brandon in high school. And was overjoyed when I heard he was taking over. This question is mostly for Harriet and anyone not Peter or Brandon. Did you ever finish Mistborn? And have you read any other of Brandon's books? And which was your favorite?
I had a guest edit on The Way of Kings, which is a super vocal.
And so I was just wondering, what was it like to work with Saidar Said, Robert Jordan's magic system in comparison to your magic systems, and how did Robert Jordan's magic system influence your development of magic systems?
I really have always liked, obviously, his system, which is part of why I love the books. His system had this nice mix between the visual aspect. I really loved the weaving and things like this, and it had some interesting ramifications on physics and whatnot. And I always also liked a lot of the sense of mystery to it in that they didn't know everything, which is one thing that I like when a magic system. I like to write very rule-based magic systems, but I feel that if you know everything, we don't know everything about physics, we don't know everything about science, and so how can you know everything about the magic, which is the science of a certain world? That said, Jim generally was more flexible with himself on allowing himself to do different things with the magic. He had a more open-ended magic system, I would guess. A lot more weaves were created and things like that, and I tend to make my magic systems more restrictive. Because of this, going into the books, I worried that working in a system where I was uninhibited in that way, that I would just go completely bonkers. And so when I sat down to work in the system, I decided it was, when necessary, I would develop new weaves, but I would resist the urge, and that there had been so much developed by Jim so far that I would use weaves either in the books or from the notes whenever possible, and I would prefer to take those and try to go new places with them, as opposed to developing lots of new and different weaves. Which is why you see me doing things like pushing gateways a little bit further, because I thought there was a lot of room to explore there, or pushing what Perrin does in the Wolf Dream, and these sorts of things, because these are established systems that Jim created for me and for all of us, and I felt there was so much room to move in those that I didn't need to go other places. There are some places in the books where a new weave was appropriate, and we did that, but I tried very hard to cap that, because I worried I would just do too much, if that makes any sense. I really enjoyed working with it. In fact, the Wheel of Time, in a lot of ways, the Wheel of Time doing what it did had prevented me in my career from ever approaching doing those things, if that makes any sense. Because I love the Wheel of Time, I didn't want to be repeating something that I didn't want to be, accused of just copying Robert Jordan. And so because of that, you don't see me writing a lot of the types of things he did, I'd always wanted to do a dream world, but I never did a dream world because the Wheel of Time had done one so well. And then when I was able to work on this, I got to kind of do all of those things that I made off limits to myself because Robert Jordan had done them already and done them so well. And it was pretty awesome to be able to do that. It was one of my favorite parts about doing this, is all these things that were on my list of Robert Jordan did this, so don't do it, suddenly became things I could do.
Follow up to that, I think that instead of just being the magic system guy, I think that Brendan has earned the right to be the good, quality, compelling character. So.
Woo!
After a lot of those, my question's kind of simple. First of all, Harry, thank you. These characters have been my friends for 20 years. So just thank you to you for helping everything that you've done in that process. But my question is, reading this, so many times, I've always associated myself with a few characters, Perrin and then Lad on that campaign. I'm just wondering, and this could be open to anybody, but mainly you three, who do you really relate yourselves with of the main characters there?
I have frequently said that Perrin was my favorite all along. I was a Perrin fan. Even when Perrin was in a darker place in his life. If you're a Cubs fan, you don't abandon the Cubs just because they haven't, won a World Series. And when you're a Perrin fan, you don't abandon Perrin just because he's struggling in his life with some important questions. So it's been Perrin. Even though Matt stole the show in later books, I was still a Perrin fan.
And I guess I love them all.
I wish I was, like some of Baron. I didn't really want to be evil or anything. I like Baron. She was sneaky, but she got things done, and she turned out all right.
And she had that owl.
Hi, I'm Heather. I am from Lehigh, Utah. The last time we came to the book signing 2 years ago, I was also very pregnant, and I gave birth 24 hours later. But my question is I have not been a Wheel of Time fan as long as my husband. He introduced me to them after we were married, and I know that a lot of the female characters get a lot of hate from the fans sometimes because I've always loved them. I thought they were really well developed. And I really love the women's world that's been developed in the series too. I mean, we see Elaine's midwife appointments, and we see a lot of other things. And the women's magic is almost exclusively through the book until Rand comes along and kind of makes things for the guys better again. So I don't know how to phrase this, but how did Robert Jordan write about women so well? Because a lot of times I feel like he hits the nail right on the head. Did you really influence that, Harriet, or was he just a sensitive guy?
I did not consciously influence it. At a very early signing in California, a group of women came in long skirts, and they had on kind of shawls and long hair, and they went up to him at the signing table. There were 3 or 4 of them, and they said, well, this settles an argument. He was looking up at them, and he said, about what? He said, we felt that Robert Jordan must be the nom de plume of a woman writer, because who could write women that well? And he said, well, I'm not. Looking up through his beard. But with the first book, I think it was, Tor sent down a fan letter and very sillily had taken it out of the envelope. And it was a handwritten letter from a woman in Florida who said, you have answered the question that Freud was afraid of. What do women want? They want power. Just like men. And I think maybe that's what makes women so good.
Thank you.
Good luck, and I hope you get home safely.
I'm Bradley Johnston, guys. Sorry. I'm local. I'm fairly new to the series. My question is primarily for Jason, but it's open to anybody. I believe you've had this question before, but a few months ago, there were a few articles on Tor.com as a kind of recap of the series as a whole. The last one was, what are titles for hypothetical Wheel of Time musical numbers? And I was wondering if you had anything to add to that, or if anyone else had anything to add to that.
I'm going to pass that along. They tried to drag some answers out of me for that, and I passed on. I'm going to stick to film, so.
Well, there are a number of titles of songs in the books, including alternate titles, as I'm sure you know. And you could write your own, well, for fan purposes, the risky versions and the nice versions. Always love the wind that shakes the willow.
Oh, God. We blame people like these that came up with this, but I do want to, and thank you for your question, I do want to hand, you had a correction on something we said earlier. Do you have it? Okay, Matt's going to correct us when it's the answer, because Robert Jordan apparently gave an answer.
So there was a question about the Dragon Soul and whether that's a title or not. So he did answer. Someone asked it because it had to do with the entirety of the question was, can it change? Could it be a woman? It could be a female. Would it be the same person or a new turning? And his answer was it could not be female. The soul would remain the same gender. And he also said that it would not necessarily be Rand in the next turning. So in other words, it would still be that same soul, but it would not be necessarily the Rand story the next time around. It might be whatever. And he talked about just because looking at a pattern as things change in turnings, little things are going to change, or I guess in this case maybe it's something bigger. But so I don't know if that answers your question, but that is
well,
that's the answer we gave.
The question was really more about Lews Therin as the original dragon, or at least the original dragon that we know about. Was he born to be the dragon, or was that something that he kind of grew into?
It's the soul.
The okay.
Soul is.
So he was born to be. Okay, thank you.
So we are going to come to an ending here, but before we do, we have giveaways.